Everything the Big Bang Theory cast has said about a proper sequel show. When The Big Bang Theory ended in 2019 after a monumental 12-season run, it felt like the end of an era, not just for sitcom television, but for the millions who spent over a decade laughing with Sheldon, Leonard, Penny, and the rest of Pasadena's most beloved group of friends. Yet, even as the finale wrapped things up with emotional grace, one major question has lingered ever since. Will there ever be a proper sequel show? Not a prequel like Young Sheldon, not a spin-off tucked into a corner of the timeline, but an honest-to-goodness continuation that shows what the gang is really doing after Sheldon and Amy's Nobel Prize and Penny's surprising pregnancy reveal. Over the years, cast members have spoken, sometimes carefully, sometimes teasingly, about the possibility of returning to the world that made them household names. And intriguingly, their comments paint a picture that fans can't ignore. A sequel isn't impossible. In fact, it might be closer than we think. Here's everything the cast of The Big Bang Theory has ever said about a proper sequel show, and what it reveals about the future of the beloved sitcom. Jim Parsons, Sheldon Cooper. Never say never isn't nothing. Jim Parsons was famously ready to move on from Sheldon Cooper when the show ended. His exit was the reason the series wrapped, and he spoke openly about needing new creative challenges. But what many fans overlook is how careful he has always been about closing the door completely. In multiple interviews over the years, Parsons has repeated a variation of the same line, never say never. He has made it clear that he loves Sheldon, loves the cast, and loves the world Chuck Lorre created. It just had to end when it did because he felt the timing was right. Interestingly, Parsons has also admitted that voicing older Sheldon on Young Sheldon kept him connected to the character far longer than he expected. It gave him what he called a gentle epilogue to the role. In other words, Parsons hasn't been distancing himself from Sheldon, he's been gradually easing away. And often, easing away is the first step to easing back. If a sequel had a meaningful emotional hook, something that allowed Sheldon to evolve beyond the strict, quirky routines that defined him, Parsons has said he wouldn't automatically turn it down. His affection for his co-stars alone seems to keep the possibility alive. Kaley Cuoco, Penny Hofstadter, would return in a heartbeat. While Parsons is cautious, Kaley Cuoco has been refreshingly enthusiastic. If there is one Big Bang Theory star who has been consistently vocal about wanting a sequel, it's Cuoco. Cuoco has repeatedly said she would reprise Penny in a heartbeat, no question. She has called Penny the role of a lifetime and often jokes that she'd be thrilled to revisit Penny and Leonard's marriage, especially now that real life has given her the experience of motherhood. She has even added that a revival or sequel series could be a blast to explore now that all the characters are at different life stages. Penny is one of the characters fans most want to check in on. Did Penny continue acting? Did she fall back into her pharmaceutical rep job more happily than she expected? How are she and Leonard doing as parents? Cuoco's enthusiasm alone proves the door is wide open. And more importantly, if the actress who left the finale pregnant on screen wants to explore that story, there's definitely more to tell. Johnny Galecki, Leonard Hofstadter, nostalgic, sentimental, and open. Johnny Galecki has always been one of the most thoughtful voices in the cast when discussing a sequel. He's been clear that the original run ended at the right time, but he has also acknowledged how deeply the show shaped his life. In interviews, Galecki often sounds like someone who misses the camaraderie and still feels emotionally tied to Pasadena. Like Cuoco, he has said the cast remains close and that returning to the world of the Big Bang Theory, if it felt creatively right, would be something he'd absolutely consider. Galecki has also hinted at how interesting it would be to play Leonard as a father, especially given how much Leonard's sense of identity was tied to his struggles with his own parents. Watching Leonard try to be a better father than Beverly? That alone is sequel-worthy material. And Galecki has said he'd love the opportunity to re-explore a character with so much more life behind him. If a sequel show does happen, Galecki isn't a barrier, he's a likely anchor. Mayim Bialik, Amy Farrah Fowler, gives the most sequel-friendly answers. If any cast member sounds like they're actively waiting for the phone call, it's Mayim Bialik. Bialik has said she absolutely adored Amy's final arc and would be curious to explore Amy and Sheldon's life post-Nobel, especially as parents or as leading scientific figures. Amy's career was just taking off when the show ended, and Bialik has mentioned that she thinks Amy had a lot more story to tell. Most surprisingly, Bialik has also said she keeps in regular contact with the writers and producers. She's friendly with the minds behind the Young Sheldon, and she has repeatedly used the phrase, "I'd love to revisit it if the opportunity came up." She's not just open, she's actively positive about returning. and Amy is arguably the character who gained the most depth in later seasons. There is rich territory left to explore, and Bialik seems fully game. Simon Helberg Howard Wolowitz loves the idea, but only if it's high quality. Simon Helberg has always approached the idea of a sequel with humor and self-awareness. He's joked about how people still yell Howard at him on the street, and he's admitted he misses the controlled chaos of a weekly sitcom taping. But he's also one of the most careful about creative quality. Helberg has said he'd be open to returning as Howard, but only if the material was genuinely worth revisiting. He doesn't want a revival for the sake of nostalgia alone. If a sequel focused on Howard and Bernadette raising teenagers or Howard mentoring young astronauts, he's expressed interest in exploring those comedic setups. He loves the character, but he wants the sequel to match the emotional growth and polish of the later seasons of the original show. His stance boils down to, yes, if it's really good. And honestly, that's the best possible stance for fans hoping the show returns with real heart and ambition. Kunal Nayyar Rauch Kuthrapalli wants a satisfying Rauch ending. Kunal Nayyar has perhaps the strongest narrative reason to want a sequel. Rauch's ending was famously the most open-ended, neither a fairy tale romance nor a definitive closure. It left fans divided. Some saw it as realistic growth. Others wanted a more conclusive emotional payoff after 12 seasons. Nayyar has acknowledged this many times. He has said he'd love to explore whether Rauch eventually finds a meaningful relationship, becomes a father, or continues evolving into the confident but still awkward romantic he was becoming by the finale. In several interviews, Nayyar has even said he misses playing Rauch deeply and would gladly return to finish his story. For a character whose ending felt intentionally unresolved, his eagerness is a strong sign that Rauch would play a major role in any sequel. Melissa Rauch Bernadette Rostankowski Wolowitz. Quiet but always positive. Melissa Rauch tends to be more private in interviews, but whenever the subject of a sequel or return comes up, she's unfailingly warm. She has expressed deep gratitude for Bernadette and said she would never rule out returning. More interestingly, now that Rauch has successfully headlined Night Court, she has the sitcom experience and star power to take on an even bigger comedic role in a sequel. Bernadette as a fierce but loving mother of teens? Comedy gold. And Rauch seems more than open to the possibility. What these comments really mean, the cast hasn't moved on, not fully. The most striking takeaway from everything the cast has said is this: no one has closed the door. Not a single main cast member. They may not all be campaigning for it, but none of them have said no. And in Hollywood, no usually comes quickly when people truly want out. Instead, the cast quotes collectively build a picture of affection for their characters, nostalgia for the ensemble, curiosity about what comes next, a desire for